Now, as we go to air tonight, the ceasefire in the Middle East is set to collapse after a shocking violation by Iran. Just hours after agreeing to a ceasefire, Iran fired missiles into residential areas in northern Israel. This occurred at 5:35 p.m. our time, just 2.5 hours ago, and it was Tuesday morning in Israel. Israelis were just beginning to relax, with the ceasefire supposedly taking effect when sirens sounded across the north, as you can see. This is inexcusable. It's a clear violation of the ceasefire, and Iran won't be allowed to get away with this. The IDF's Chief of the General Staff, Eyal Zamir, said in a statement tonight, in light of the severe violation of the ceasefire carried out by the Iranian regime, we will respond with force. And Israel's Defense Minister, Israel Katz, says Jerusalem will respond forcefully in the heart of Tehran. He said this is a ceasefire violation. So all this is unfolding right now as we're going to air. We'll keep bringing you the developments as they happen. And President Donald Trump might address the media as he boards his flight to NATO. He's scheduled to do so this hour. And when he does, we'll bring that straight to you live. Now, thankfully, both of the missiles fired into northern Israel that were in breach of the ceasefire were intercepted. But earlier today, Tehran targeted the residential area of Beersheba yet again with a series of missiles that have now killed 4 Israelis. Iran fired a barrage of ballistic missiles in quick succession. 2 were fired toward a residential building. 1 was intercepted, but the other reportedly hit the 6th floor of the apartment, and it directly hit 2 safe rooms, killing the 4 people inside and injuring another 22. Now, 3 of those killed were members of a single family. It's said to be a man and a woman in their 40s and another man in his 20s. And there were many other people extracted alive from beneath the rubble. Now, this is shocking footage. This is the moment that it hit. Now, the same area of Beersheba was impacted just last Thursday when the Soroka Medical Center was struck by another Iranian missile. Now, the Israeli Air Force is investigating why the air defenses, including the Iron Dome, didn't manage to intercept the missile this morning. But tonight, it does look like Israel will punish Iran for those cruel civilian deaths and for breaching the agreement. Earlier today, we had the welcome news that America had brokered a tentative ceasefire, and President Trump declared, perhaps too optimistically, on Truth Social, "Congratulations to everyone. It has been fully agreed by and between Israel and Iran that there will be a complete and total ceasefire in approximately 6 hours from now, when Israel and Iran have wound down and completed their in-progress final missions for 12 hours, at which point the war will be considered ended." And in that post, Trump went on to say this should be called the 12-day war. Well, sadly, it looks like that name will have to be updated. And let's hope it's only the 13 and the 14-day war and that this doesn't go on any longer than necessary. But hasn't it been a massive few days? And it explains why many are reaching for the famous Lenin quote about the Russian Revolution, that there are decades when nothing happens and there are weeks when decades happen. And isn't that true of the past week? I mean, just the past few days. And many were skeptical that the ceasefire announced by Trump wouldn't hold after Iran's Foreign Minister Saeed Abbas Araghchi posted on social media that as of now, there is no agreement on any ceasefire or cessation of military operations. However, provided that the Israeli regime stops its illegal aggression against the Iranian people no later than 4 a.m. Tehran time, we have no intention to continue our response afterwards. And yet they did, firing 2 missiles, as we know, in northern Israel in breach of the ceasefire agreement that Donald Trump, by the way, claimed would hold forever, would last forever. And it hasn't lasted a matter of hours. Now, in total, over the past 2 weeks or so, Iran has fired about 950 missiles, 950, all at Israeli civilians. 8,190 civilians have had to be evacuated from their homes, 27 were murdered, and 1,217 Israelis have been injured. Iran's actions in breaching the ceasefire, it's just further proof, not that you need it, that its only goal is to cause death and destruction to Israel. Israelis had been breathing a sigh of relief at the prospect of the ceasefire. No more rushing to bomb shelters at all hours, fearing for their lives. And so many families have been impacted by the terror, the exhaustion, the destruction of homes, businesses, even hospitals in suburban areas. Because the IRGC was only targeting civilians in a reflection of its murderous intent. Now, Israel went into Iran initially to dismantle its nuclear sites, and it said it expected the operation would last around 2 weeks. Now, Benjamin Netanyahu said on Sunday that he felt these war goals were close to being achieved. So this was where he was expecting it to go. He said, when we achieve the goals, we will not continue with actions beyond what is necessary, but we will not finish too early. When the goals are achieved, the operation will stop. And even after America's strikes on the nuclear site Fordow, Israel then went in again and hit that underground nuclear site with more missiles to completely destroy it, or as much as is possible, from the air. In total, Israel has bombed more than 1,100 military and nuclear targets in Iran. That's the estimation. And this includes missile production facilities, air defense batteries and command centers, not civilian areas. It has also hit IRGC headquarters, missile factories, air bases, and even just since we went to air last night, the gates of the Evin prison. This prison is a site of torture where Iranian-Canadian photojournalist Zara Kazemi was murdered in 2003. Many other dissidents faced the same fate. Israel blowing up its gate, its doors, is a symbolic move designed to encourage Iranians to take back control of their country. And thanks to Israel and the US, the IRGC has been crippled. It is defeated. And yet, as we're seeing tonight, it refuses to surrender. The International Atomic Energy Agency has also raised questions over the 400 kilogram of enriched uranium that it says it verified just a few days before Israel's military action began. Now, we had on the show last night former IDF official Jonathan Conricus, and he addressed this, and he said it's hardly something that Israel would have forgotten.
I think assess that Israel has pretty good intel when it comes to Iran. Israel has been collecting, assessing intel and preparing itself for this moment for quite a few years. And I think, I don't think that Israel would, forget to deal with such an important and critical piece of asset.
So Iran has been thoroughly defeated. Its airspace surrendered to Israel. Its nuclear sites hit over and over again. Yet it still breached the ceasefire brokered by the President of the United States in a move that will only bring pain onto its leadership. It was an idiotic strategic move. Israel had raised the possibility of taking out the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, in the past few days. But it wouldn't have done this after agreeing to the ceasefire. Israel would have abided by the terms. Yet now that the ceasefire is off, this action, along with any other, is presumably back on the table. And this came after Iran targeted the major US military airbase in Qatar overnight in retaliatory attacks for the American strike on its nuclear facilities. Now, it seemed like Iran was acting somewhat sensibly, wanting to avoid ongoing war, and so it gave advance warning to Qatar. The airbase was evacuated, most of the missiles were intercepted, and there were no casualties. But Qatar, one of Iran's only friends in the region, is now deeply unimpressed. It summoned the Iranian ambassador. As I said, the Qatar Prime Minister is speaking right now as we go to air, and its foreign minister has said that it does retain the right to respond to this egregious violation. Now, week two have been those who came out in support of the Iranian regime as America waged strikes on its nuclear facilities. And the chief cheerleader was Tucker Carlson. His predictions of mass American deaths and the start of World War III were entirely unfounded. And it turns out that he phoned Donald Trump to apologise a few days ago.
Tucker's a nice guy. He called and apologized the other day because he thought he said things that were a little bit too strong, and I appreciated that. And Ted Cruz is a nice guy. I mean, he's been with me for a long time. I'd say once the race was over, he's been with me ever since, right?
But Tucker should also apologise to his 16 million followers for stirring up hatred based on false propositions. And Albanese could too apologise to Australians for letting us down so severely, because that is exactly what he's done. Scott Morrison told me last night that Albanese should have called a national security meeting on Sunday and come out immediately to support America and Israel. There's no question that's what Morrison would have done, and he believes other former prime ministers on both sides as well, including Howard, Rudd and Gillard. He says they had the same instincts to support the US alliance. This is your message to the Albanese government now. You're saying stop being ambiguous when it comes to foreign policy, support our allies. That's what you're saying, isn't it?
Of course. I mean, for those who want to live in the fairyland that thinks that without an alliance with the United States, we somehow have a defence arrangement, that somehow Australia would be the only country other than the United States that would be able to resist the type of potential offence that would be levelled at Australia and do it in isolation. This is absolute la-la land. The United States is our most important ally. And whether it was the Howard government or was with my government, whether it was during times of the Rudd government, the Gillard government, there was an instinctive alignment with the United States. And I can't tell you why he waited until today before saying something. I don't know the answer to that question. If you're the United States and you take an action like this, and it wouldn't have been an easy call for the president. This is not something he would have been rushing to do, itching to do. But you'd want to know your allies were with you.
100%.
And how hard is it to go, well done, Mr. President, on taking out the nuclear capabilities of a despotic, authoritarian regime that, imposes all sorts of extinguishment of liberties on their own people.
Should be the easiest thing to say. Now, you're seeing at the bottom of your screen live shots from the Andrews Air Base in Maryland. We're waiting for the President of the United States, Donald Trump, to turn up. He's going to take that flight to NATO. He may speak to the media. If he does, we'll go straight to the President of the United States. But just to explain, that is the shot you're looking at there. We're waiting for Donald Trump to turn up and to see if he does comment on the news that the ceasefire that he announced just hours ago has now collapsed. But back to Scott Morrison, I mean, it shouldn't be so refreshing to hear that kind of moral clarity. In fact, this should be the bare minimum we expect from our Prime Minister and our Foreign Minister. But they've made their bed, they've damaged the relationship with America, and they're going to have to live with the consequences. Now, what we're experiencing now, you just have to say there are days in life that will be entirely forgotten. No record in the history books, nothing of note to jog our memories. And then there are days like these ones, deeply consequential, that could never be erased from memory. And we've all just lived through one of the most momentous periods in modern history, where heroes emerged and those lacking in courage and conviction were exposed. The Trump-Netanyahu partnership has shown the world what peace through strength can look like yet again, what American deterrence looks like. If the likes of Albanese and Tucker Carlson are remembered in the historical retelling of this story at all. And they probably won't be. It will be for sitting on the wrong side of history.